So I'm going to call to order the Development Agency Budget Committee. Today is, what is today? June 5th. And ask that a motion be considered for appointment to the chair.
I would like to nominate Chris Hartson as the chair of the 2017-2018 Clackamas County Development Agency Budget Committee.
Is there a second? Been moved and seconded to elect Chris Hartson as the chair of the Development Agency Board Budget Committee. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries, and here's the gavel.
Good morning. I'll now call for nominations for vice chair.
I nominate Glenn Scalheedy as, I'm sorry, I'm out of order.
What?
I nominate, yeah, thank you. I nominate Ken Horn as vice chair of the Development Agency Budget Committee for the 2017-2018 budget.
I second the nomination.
It has been moved and seconded that Ken Horn be elected vice chair. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. The ayes have it, and Ken Horn is elected vice chair of the Budget Committee. I'll now call for nominations for secretary.
I think now I'm in order. I nominate Blaine Scalheedy as as secretary of the Development Agency Budget Committee for the 2017-18 budget.
And I second that.
It has been moved and seconded that Blaine Scalheedy be elected secretary. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say no. The ayes have it, and Blaine Scalheedy is elected secretary of the Budget Committee. I will now ask Dave Queener, Program Supervisor of the Development Agency, to present the 2017-2018 budget.
Good morning. As Chris mentioned, my name is Dave Queener. I'm the Program Supervisor for the Development Agency and happy to be here this morning to present our 2017-18 budget for the Development Agency. The Development Agency is the Urban Renewal Authority for the county, and we are housed underneath the Department of Transportation and Development. We are responsible for implementing 3 urban renewal plan areas for the county. Those 3 are the Clackamas Town Center area, which you'll see we have 2 funds that you'll be hearing about today within that area. We have the Clackamas Industrial area, which has 1 fund that has a budget allocation for, and the North Clackamas Revitalization area that has 2 funds within that plan area. The first one we'll be talking about is the Clackamas Town Center area. It's the one that has the most significant amount of funding. We have a total program budget of $43,243,318. It's important to point out that although this is a large number, this isn't the actual amount that's available as far as funding goes, because we do have transfer of funds between the 2 funds that we have. And those 2 funds, one is our reserve fund, our debt service fund, and then the other one is our operating fund. So that's why the number you see there will seem a little bit higher than what we actually have available. We do have contingency and reserve in our debt service fund, a total of $19,811,035. We do have no general fund support with our districts. Our revenue is limited at this point because we are no longer collecting tax revenue through our increment. Our proceeds are limited to our land sales that we potentially would have with development agency property and rents and royalties on those properties as well. With regard to our accomplishments, what we've gotten completed in the last year, we've completed our Artie Road realignment project. We've also finished up our allocations to our not our special districts, to our partners with regard to project partnerships in this last year. And then we've also completed design on our Boyer Street project. We'll be doing that extension here in this next year. Construction will start here in probably September for that project. January, we will be starting construction of our Sunnyside Stevens project, and we'll continue on design in this next year for our CRC mobility project. That project is a significant change in the budget that you'll see before you today. We expanded the scope of that project, and our board has authorized us to move forward with that project, which is now went from a $15 million project up to a $25.7 million project. So that's a significant portion of what we'll be budgeting for the coming year. And also to point out, the contingency and reserve funds that we have will be used for primarily for that project in the coming years. Clackamas Industrial Area, we have a just under $5.6 million budgeted for that district this year. This one is significantly, as far as revenue goes, we have anticipated sale of some property, which will bring in a revenue of about $3.5 million for this district this year. We had a carryover of roughly $2 million from previous budget years. As far as accomplishments in this district, we have been focusing on redevelopment of our Clackamas Industrial Area Opportunity Site, improvement projects that we've completed 120th out there. We've worked on getting permitting and approval. So that site is essentially shovel-ready at this point. We do have some funds available in the coming budget for potential improvements on Caps Road for that industrial area site as well. As far as any changes in this district, it's primarily, we are working towards, again, finalizing agreements for the development of the Chow site and looking for hopefully bringing forward development agreements to the board in the near future on that site. Our final district, the North Clackamas Revitalization Area. This is the only district that is still collecting tax increment. As you see there, we have about $2.85 million projected for tax revenue in this district for this coming year. There are limited funds at this point in this district. We have approximately $1.2 million in contingency and reserve the coming years. Actually, let me point out some things that we completed in the last year. We did complete our Bell Phase 2 improvement project, and we also did complete improvements to the Wichita Center in this last year as well. This coming year will be limited to just some preliminary design work on 2 road projects, and then continuing our program support for residences and properties out in that North Clackamas Revitalization Area. In summary, our department-wide budget is just under $55 million. Again, that encompasses 5 funds, 3 operating funds and 2 debt service funds. We do not receive any general fund support throughout our plan areas. Our revenue sources, again, are very limited to property sales and then rents and royalties on those properties. One thing that we like to point out is our major expenditures. As you can see, we spend just about 90% of our revenue that comes in, we spend on construction-related projects and program support. With financial trends, we're going down in our tax increment because only one is still receiving those funds. As far as the overall goes, we are also getting increased revenue through our property sales. Full-time employees, we are carrying forward 4.5 full-time employees for the coming year. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, I have a couple of questions. So on the Clackamas Industrial Area, land sale proceeds, estimate 3.5, you haven't sold it yet. That's the estimate of what you're gonna get. A portion of that belongs to DTD, I assume. What portion of this, all of it?
Hello, thank you. Dan Johnson, Assistant Director, Department of Transportation and Development. Yeah, the plan currently is essentially to take all of that revenue. I have the exact number in here, but essentially all of that revenue is planned to be transferred. Essentially, we're buying out the asset which we've jointly purchased with the road fund. So we'll be trying to make the road fund whole with that money.
The other thing is, so in the Clackamas Town Center area, you're not just restricted to roads and sidewalks. You could do some potential investment in affordable housing and, correct?
We are restricted by what our plan allows us to do.
Okay.
And so the nuances of where we develop projects is simply needs to align with the currently adopted plan. I believe the plan, I don't want to be quoted, but I believe the plan does have some discussion about some possible affordable housing. I'd have to go confirm that.
Yeah, so when's the last time we saw the plan? I can't remember.
Well, we did let's see here, we did an amendment, did we do that? Recently did an amendment to simply allow, if you recall, we had some direct investment dollars. We were trying to invest directly back in and partner with some of our overlapping taxing districts. So I want to say six months ago,
Yes.
we went through a modification to allow a project from Mount Scott Elementary. That's the last time the district or the board's seen the plan.
So those are just some planned amendments, but not the whole
The
plan.
whole plan in its totality. It's probably been quite some time.
I would, Don, I would think that we might want to do a work session on the plan. As I mentioned previously, at another one of these budgets, we need to perhaps look at how we can support investments in clean energy, maybe clean coal. I'm kidding. Solar, various projects that, might be something we could invest in. And it'd be interesting to see the future of Clackamas Town Center. Clackamas Town Center, malls like that are falling apart across the country. And I know that Clackamas Town Center is looking at a possible housing development on some of their parking lot. And then I've had a lot of people talk to me about, could we use some of that money to look at a conference center kind of investment in that area too? But I think we should look at the plan. I know that 4 years, 6 months ago, we talked about giving back some of that money, the overlapping districts, and I don't know how much more conversation we've had since. So I look forward to that.
We're excited to share it with you.
I will now open the hearing for,
One more.
oh, sorry.
I just want to say, just to respond to Commissioner Bernard's statements or desires, I guess it's kind of similar to what I mentioned under ELED, in that we, as a board of the district, the board of the district advisory board or the district decision-making body, that we should probably talk about that. I know that we've worked, and Ken has too, closely with an advisory committee, but it's been a long time since I've been at one of those advisory committee meetings. I know that we're winding the district down. We're not collecting, especially in not the NC, but not the North Clackamas area, but the area south, the original town center area. So I think with 2 new commissioners and so forth, it'd be a good idea maybe that we try to get at least an understanding of what those boundaries are and talk about what the district does and meet as the board for the development agency. And again, that sit down with the advisory board that's worked for years on this. When was the last time they met? I think I had maybe a meeting clash and I wasn't able to attend, I think.
Let me give you a little background on about the working group, and then I'm going to have Dave kind of follow up because he's the last individual who's been working closely with them. So this harkens back to 5 years ago, and we thought it was an important time in the life of the plan to really sit down and get what we called our working group or focus group. And this is a balanced group of citizens in the area, CPO representatives, businesses in the areas of various sizes, to sit down and have a heart-to-heart discussion about what they felt the most appropriate use of the remaining funds were. And through that work, they developed a working group document, which then we presented to the board for consideration, and it had what we considered kind of tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 projects. And that list of projects then became a discussion for the Board of County Commissioners at that point in time to figure out what projects they felt they wanted to fund. And so that kind of gives you a history on that group. Now, in regards to recent discussions, I'm going to let Dave take it from there, because he's been working with them on the Clackamas Connections project, so.
Yeah, excuse me. That working group kind of morphed into the CRC, the Clackamas Regional Center Mobility Improvement Project. We brought on several of those members into that group. We had an advisory group to help us whittle down the projects that we should implement as part of that broader CRC mobility project. So we've been active in that regard as far as keeping engaged with the members out there. We have not recently had that original group back together, and it's probably timely to do so, is to re-engage that broader group to talk about the progress that we're making out there.
So in regard to the north part of the agency's work on 82nd Avenue, not the original district, or not the original urban renewal area, but the area north of that, up in the Audie Fuller Road area, what's that called again? That part of the,
Are you talking about the North Clackamas
Yes.
revitalization area?
Yeah. Yeah. What, do we have a working group for that? Or is, because this doesn't really affect the town center area, this is geographically north, as I recall, right?
I think there's, I don't think there's a standing group out there that we've worked with. We've obviously engaged, though, as we've looked to implement projects out there. We've gotten citizens together to talk about specifically what roads to improve and that type of situation, but there's not a standing committee out there at this point.
And it might be time, the timing for that discussion is good, because what you don't see, well, if you look deeply into the numbers, I mean, right now, we're at an interesting point in time where we're probably going to come back to the board and be talking about the possibility of going forward with a future bond. And with that bond, we'll have capital projects queued up as a part of that discussion. It's at the time of the district where it seems like a reasonable move to make. We have a steady revenue stream coming in. We should get some bond dollars in place, get a bond sale proceeds going. The budget doesn't assume that right now, so we have to go through a supplemental if it's something we want to move forward more quickly. But it's that time to have that discussion. This year is kind of like hey, slow down, reset, close some projects out. We still have a lot of money in there for some of the programmatic assistance we're doing. We had the sewer assessment offset funds that we're still doing. We had the sewer hookup grant programs that we're still doing. We still have the home assistance programs that we're doing to kind of make sure that we're keeping the residential stock of housing. There's a lot of opportunities for folks of lesser means to kind of secure some of those funds. To keep them occupying those facilities. But it's time to kind of step back and kind of talk again about let's go forward with a bond. If we go forward with a bond, what projects are that? And that would be a good time to kind of engage a group of the committee members or community members to kind of have a discussion about that.
You're capturing my point, and so I share that interest.
Great. We look forward to reporting on that as well.
Yeah, my recollection, Dan, that's the Overland Park area, and I remember when we first did that overlay, the whole notion was not to gentrify the area, but it was essentially to provide sewer systems because it was septic systems failing all over the place, and so these other improvements, so it's probably a very good example of how to do redevelopment without
It's a little bit,
gentrification. It
like
was, yeah.
it's a little bit different. I mean, it's a little bit different than all of our other districts because it doesn't have a huge focus on redevelopment. It has a focus on stabilization.
Stabilization and infrastructure, yeah.
Exactly, and supporting
stabilization.
infrastructure, exactly. The sewers, we're doing some road improvements, we're gonna look to do some more, we're having discussions about what those might be. We did engage, we tried to do a mailer to all the citizenry in the NCRA, this is 2 or 3 years ago. I mean, we have moderate success, but we did have some discussions, folks showed up, had talks about what their priorities were for projects, and we're filtering through that, though, to get our next list of projects queued up for the board to consider, so.
Well, it was a depressed area. It's still somewhat, but it's improved greatly with the infrastructure improvements.
Oh, it's,
You wanna say no, it's end.
yeah.
Thank you. I'm the newest member of the Budget Committee, so I'm still probably on a relatively steep learning curve. I will say, through my Rotary Club, we've done a lot of volunteer work in the North Clackamas revitalization area. And when we toured that area, when we had our first meeting, I must say I was deeply impressed by the work you were doing. I think I strongly endorse your priorities. I'm highly pleased to see what you've done especially around the Wichita Center, which is such an important center for that area. And I have nothing to say other than I think you're doing a great job, and I agree completely with your priorities.
This is where we say Ed is brilliant, and and we thank you so much.
I just, I was mayor when this district was created because septic failures were actually leaking into Johnson Creek. It was really important. But I left right after we created this district. And thanks to Obama, some stimulus money, a lot of people got hooked up that never could have afforded to do that. But my question is, I got a lot of, I'm going to say crap for insisting that folks had to annex to the city of Milwaukee at the time. Yeah, at least a certain percentage had to annex. And I wonder how that's going. Are they annexing to Milwaukee? Because I don't know. I haven't heard a single thing about that in years. Do you know? He's looking through his papers. There must
No,
be
no, no,
some-
no, 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 no. Hang on. This is my look of panic, in case you're looking for it.
Oh,
Yes, there have been annexations that have taken place. And keep in mind, the district boundary is blind to whether or not it's in the city or in the county. We have agreements with the city of Milwaukee. So for example, we have actually completed a number of payments to them for the work they've provided for hooking the sewers up. But there were, mostly when the sewers initially came online, there was an extensive number of annexations that occurred on that far easterly side of the city. I can't remember that road. I can't remember the road break, but there's a road break in there somewhere where those lines and systems, those sanitary systems kind of split. But everybody, for the majority on the west side of that line, essentially did annex to the city of Milwaukee.
yeah. Okay. I was just interested.
I think West might even have a better answer because it was a West program that actually required that annexation should they hook up. So we might get more answers later this afternoon on that one.
And we did, and I'm gonna go back to Ed's statement. These are opportunity wins, and they're partnerships that we have. And so, we use our money to partner with other entities to provide the services those citizens need. So we had that opportunity to partner with Wes, which was great. Water Environment Services for those folks who are watching on TV. The Wichita example. The Wichita example is a discussion that we had with North Clackamas School District. We sat down with them, and it was a long discussion, but it was like, hey, where do you need help and what needs to happen? And those are projects that were specifically called out in our plan. There's other advanced things that were done through the amazingly intelligent thoughts of Barbara Cartmill, who's behind me to my left, where we had discussions about, advanced SDC reduction purchases. So what we did is we basically locked in the SDC rates for a lot of folks that were going to hook up to sewer because they were going to go up. So we did a buy down for that. I mean, those are all creative thoughts that make it more affordable and make it able for folks to hook up. That is coming to an end here this next year, and we are having thoughts about, hey, do we extend that? So those are discussions we have to have with the board and with Water Environment Services, how we partner with that. I think it's up in, I can't remember, September, I think. But those are programs we're hoping to hopefully extend further in the upcoming years that, again, help to provide the services those folks need.
So just one question, because I do think this is unique, and I wrote a note to myself, redevelopment versus stabilization. So when you look at this nationally, and particularly now as we're kind of facing housing crisis, is there best practices for not redevelopment, but actually what you've done, which seems, as you just said, there are these creative tools that you kind of use to do it. Is this something that's codified somewhere, that people have made a list of best practices and how to manage this? Or is this just kind of it seems as if you've kind of hit upon something that could be useful to inform other methodologies and frameworks.
I couldn't testify to the statement. Is it codified somewhere? Yeah, it's codified in our plan.
Right.
And it's codified through the discussions that we had with citizens, not we, mostly Barbara and others. When they were developing the plan, there were discussions about how do you creatively think about how you stabilize the housing environment over there. I mean, it's funny, my wife teaches actually at Lot Wickham Elementary, and the mobility rate for just the student population was astronomical, because folks were either, one, in a house, the house would become unlivable due to some set of circumstances, which increases the mobility rate of those folks and their families, and they have to move somewhere else, move to an apartment complex or change districts or whatever it might be. And she actually mentioned the fact yesterday, or not yesterday, a couple weeks ago, about the fact that, hey, you're starting to see a stabilization in those communities because folks are able to either, one, see change in the community, or two, they're able to, apply for some of the programs that we have that assist them in doing that. We have to talk about how we diversify those, I think, going forward. I mean, I think we've hit a niche, but, every year we put an information letter out to the entire community that says, hey, we have these programs. Remember to come and apply for them. So either one, we've got to keep hitting more people, or two, we've got to think a little more creatively about what other programs might be out there to help those folks. But right now, we've got housing, home and repair. We work through H3S. We actually have a program with H3S where they do the assessment for us. They work with the citizens out there. They're better at it than we are. There's no reason for us to hire additional staff to do that work when they do that good work. We actually just provide the funding for that. They run it through the process if they qualify or not. And it's a good partnership to try to achieve a common objective.
When I meant codify, I meant you haven't written this down anywhere, essentially. I mean, it's here and there in the conversations, it's kind of here and there as you create ideas, but there's no white paper of best practices that you've been using that is even saying, okay, here are the kinds of relationships you build. Because this is getting to the root, I think, of some of the things that we need to be dealing with in this county in a real significant way. Yeah. And
Hi,
I'm
Barb
done
Carmel,
after
since
this.
my name's come up a couple times. Commissioner, I was just going to let you know that I don't know that it's codified as you're looking for, but what has come out, and with Commissioner Savas, as we've been looking at a Park Avenue, some work we're doing out there, the idea of these livability assessments are somewhat new to the vernacular and to the process, and that is looking at the neighborhoods and what planning steps are taken, how that will trickle through. For years, we've talked about the proverbial pond, pebble in the pond, and what the impacts are, but with these new assessments out there. And I think that's a little bit more down the road you're going. They're not, here's your list of things to do, but as they're focusing more on what impact new things are having, these livability assessments are part of that process, and maybe more what you're kind of alluding to. So I didn't want to get into too much detail,
okay,
but that's the
thank
kind
you.
of things that are coming out of the work we started almost a decade ago.
Okay, thank you. Done.
Further discussion? I'll now open the hearing for public testimony. Anyone wishing to testify should begin by giving their name and address for the record. Okay. If there's no public comment, I will close the public comment portion of the hearing. Seeing that there are no additional parties wishing to comment, I'll now close the public portion of the meeting. Go ahead to bang it.
You don't have to.
But I want to.
Yes.
I will now open the discussion portion of the hearing and take any questions from the committee, which we kind of did already, right?
Yeah, just vote on it.
All right.
Okay.
let's vote on it.
Hearing no further questions, I would seek a motion to approve the budget.
I move that the committee approve the 2017-2018 budget for the Clackamas County Development Agency as presented, inclusive of the Clackamas Town Center, Clackamas Industrial Area, and North Clackamas Revitalization Area.
I second the motion.
It has been moved and seconded that the budget as presented be approved. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say no. The ayes have it, and the motion is approved. This meeting is now adjourned.